Boris Johnson has tried to be Father Christmas in suggesting that households can meet together from the 23rd to the 27th of December. However, are the government's festive plans unravelling? We have had this long-standing criticism of the government for over-promising and under-delivering. And Christmas could be a major example of this. Clearly there was a need to give hope to people at Christmas that they might see their relatives after what has been a horrific 12 months for everybody. Grandparents separated from their grandchildren, people in care homes not able to see their relatives, people dying alone, which I think most people will conclude has been one of the saddest and most tragic consequences of this pandemic. There is a sense that the government always wants to try and gee people up and keep morale high, not just for the idea that the nation needs to be buoyed, but also governments historically stay in power if they're quite popular. So Christmas has become this issue that the government wants to try and solve by saying to people that they can indeed meet from the 23rd to the 27th in this up to 3 household bubbles in order to try and salvage the festive season. That is now kind of unravelling, isn't it? Because we now have a situation where more areas are being placed into Tier 3, including London. The infection rate seems to be increasing despite all of the measures that have been taken, not least with the second lockdown, but obviously people being placed in toughened tiers. That seems rather counterintuitive to the idea of suddenly letting people go and socialise more freely for that 5-day period. On one hand, the government is saying, we're allowing you to do this, but we want you to take personal responsibility. And I think that's a perfectly fair argument to make. You can't have people talking about the erosion of civil liberties, then saying that they're unwilling to take personal responsibility for their own actions, and their actions particularly in regard to vulnerable and elderly loved ones. But on the other hand, you have this argument that the government said we could do this, so why can't we do this? They should have planned ahead. They were the ones who allowed up to 3 households to meet. We've made plans, we've booked train tickets, we've made arrangements to see granny, grandpa, aunts, uncles, cousins and what have you. It's far too late in the day to now turn around and say that you're going to scrap that plan. Equally politically, of course, if they change the plans for Christmas, even if Shadow Health Secretary Jonathan Ashworth and Labour leader Keir Starmer agree that it might be a silly idea to suddenly let people gather when the infection rate is rising, they of course aren't going to resist the opportunity to turn around and shout U-turn as loud as they can in Boris Johnson's face. And we can expect them to do that if a U-turn does happen, and we can expect the media to follow suit. The government's constantly trying to argue that, pardon the pun, they've been handed a hospital pass with this pandemic. They're having to change their decisions on a daily and weekly basis in accordance with the latest data, and that if they have to renege on Christmas, that's because the decision's being taken out of their hands by sage scientists. There are inconsistencies, aren't there? Like some people have pointed to the fact that they can go and get a haircut or go shopping in the West End, but they can't go and see their mother at the pub because the pubs are closed in Tier 3. That doesn't seem to make much sense to people. We've already heard from the likes of Professor Sarah Gilbert, who's involved in the Oxford vaccine, saying that she thinks that Christmas is a bad idea. People have been working day and night in white coats in laboratories, kind of looking at people thinking, well, does it really matter if you don't get together this Christmas? You know, bigger picture. And I think we can expect those scientific voices to get louder.